please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
The Japanese index, that's sitting with a gain of around 0.3%. Good going there. The yen has moved to around 110.5 odd mark.
Pharma, my sense is, will continue to see some buying, and this will be one sector where you'll now see dips being bought because something fundamentally is changing here.
To a middle income or a lower middle income person, such a big amount being received is a big boost and a big encouragement for him to buy a house.
We hope that the refineries GRM should be $6 plus. That's what my guess is there.
10,875 is the first equilibrium that we are seeing now, and it's sustaining there.
We are clearly more positive on large caps over mid caps and small caps over the next few years.
Clearly, the restructuring drag on our communication business is no longer there.
Power Finance Corporation is the company under radar. The stock has fallen nearly 32% year to date and more than 44% from its 52-week high.
In terms of the agreement, there is nothing different from what we've had from the beginning, meaning from 1994.
The offer size as of now is 6,000 crores, but the green shoe option is not ruled out. It will definitely depend on the demand considerations.
150 points on the Sensex, about 40 points on the Nifty is where we are at.
Okay, it's been a solid day for the markets today. The mid caps have stumbled a bit from the high point. The mid cap index has come up, so individual stocks have still done well, and the bank Nifty also up about 100 points. Been a good day, a good follow through for the bulls. This is Closing Bell. I'm Anuj, with me Surabhi. Hi Surabhi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Anuj. Interesting day, as you're saying. Just your thoughts on what's comprising today's up move. The HDFC twins are sulking, but then there's Reliance Industries, and we were discussing it where it's just a matter of time that it becomes a 4-digit stock. Yeah. And that's happened again today.
Yeah, I think the good thing for the bulls is that the rotation is happening, and a lot of stocks are turn by turn seeking higher levels. HDFC Twins remains the only sort of missing piece in this puzzle. Maybe that puzzle is solved. If that puzzle is solved, the market goes to new high. I mean, that's the only logic. But look, new highs, Surabhi, will see some resistance. So right now we are at 10,900. New high, the all-time high was 11,100. What's been interesting today is if you take a look at the Nifty chart and the Bank Nifty chart, today you have made far more money in the Nifty than in the Bank Nifty. Intraday, if you see, Nifty, every dip you bought, you have made money. The Bank Nifty has been all over the place today, and it's trading almost at its average price. But on the Nifty, I think because of Reliance, because of TS, and because of a couple of other stocks, I think going is good. In the mid caps, what's interesting is, I could be wrong, have we started to see first or fresh round of distribution? Because the index itself is almost about to turn into the red. That's a bit of a red flag for me. But then we've had a big rally, so let's see. Yeah. Right now, the big resistance would come now at the intraday high of that Karnataka election day. I think it was 10,930 thereabout. Let's see if we can finally take it out. Now, last hour before the Fed outcome, normally markets do well in the last hour.
Okay, well, we are all set for that global event, that outcome tomorrow. Right now, we've got an hour of trade left, so let's get to it. Here's what's lined up on Closing Bell today. We will be joined by Jonathan Schriesel of Ashburton to discuss the recent market moves, as well as what they have added in their portfolio and, of course, what they're betting on in the India market. Also, fundamental analysis coming up with Mr. S.P. Tulsian of sptulsian.com, Abhimanyu Sofat of IFL, and Dipan Mehta, member of the BSE as well as the NSE. And as always, a technical call along with trading ideas coming up for you with Ashwini as well as Mitesh.
Okay, in fact, we have Ashwini and Mitesh with us for the closing strategies. Good afternoon. Ashwini, your thoughts? As we speak, it's a fresh high point for the Nifty, 10,890. A call for last hour and your stock specific calls?
See, I think all day there has been a lot of up and down. Now, market breadth is getting even Steven here. So 10,920 on this sort of market breadth may not be very easy, but as long as the upswing continues, you have to remain long. I don't think new highs should come in, whatever the Fed does, etc. But somewhere in this 10,900, 11,000 zone, we should, keep making fresh highs. But I would consider this as an upswing. HDFC Twins are sulking because FIIs sell 1,000 crores in both these stocks every day. So that way, if PSU banks are going to be the leaders from here, then life becomes a bit difficult. As far as individual stocks are concerned, ICICI Pru is a buy with a stop of 405, target of 421. Bombay Burma is a buy with a stop of 1530, target of 1600. And Britannia is a buy with a stop of 6000, target of 6150.
Okay, that's interesting. So Ashwini is going with two of the Vadia Group companies as the last hour bets. Okay, let's also bring in Mitesh. Good afternoon, Mitesh. What's your reading? It's because of the problem that we're discussing, because of the HDFC twins, it's kind of one step back, one forward for this market. Index call and stocks, of course.
I think, very clearly, these two stocks do enjoy a lot of weightage in the Nifty and the Bank Nifty. So, yes, they've kind of hampered the movement on the upside. But as I said, I think, this market still looks positively biased to me, and 10,930 should happen. I think the Bank Nifty, if it can, despite the fact that the HDFC stocks are not participating, if it can start getting past 26,750, I think you might see other stocks like Axis, IndusInd Bank, Kotak Bank, and some of the PSU names participate more aggressively on the upside, which could add some momentum to the Nifty. For the time being, I have two buy calls. In fact, Kaveri Seeds has nearly met the target of 580. So if it comes back to about 555, that's a buy with a stop at 545 for targets of 580. And the other one is a buy on the IT index, wherein the intraday charts have suggested fresh breakout. So buy with a stop at 13,900 for targets of around 14,500.
Fair enough. Let's just pull out the intraday chart of Reliance Infrastructure. All of a sudden, massive buying. And if you see the chart, the volume chart, there's a massive buying. Almost, 7.5 lakh shares got traded in last 5 minutes of trade on Reliance Infrastructure. So that's a big move that's taking place right now. In fact, a lot of high beta names have done well, but Reliance Infra in particular stands out with the kind of move that you're seeing. 1% higher is what you have at the start of a last hour of trade. Perhaps an indication of where things could move in the high beta name for last hour. SP Tulsian of sptulsian.com is also with us. Mr. Tulsian, good afternoon. I know you've been positive on PSU banks, but this move on State Bank of India, what do you make of it from the result day to now? It's been 15% rally thereabout.
I think, Anuj, post these Q4 numbers, we have all seen the positive commentary coming in from the bank, maybe in respect to the NCLT accounts and the 50,000 crore, expectations of recovery in this FY19, and probably Q4 has seen the end of the asset quality cycle, having stopped worsening. And from here on, if you really see, even the 12th February RBI circular is seeing good benefits, though the details, the aggregate details of those things are not seen known to the market. But on a piecemeal, if you really see, there also good amount of settlement is seen happening. And if you see any kind of these stress assets resolution seen happening, SBI is always seen the biggest beneficiary, because if you see in the terms of the asset, the balance sheet size, SBI is almost 3.5 times of the next second largest PSU bank, that is PNB. So obviously the major amount of settlement and NPA resolution or the stress asset resolution is flowing to the bank. So all these things are seen quite positive, and that's the reason. And once the stock comes into the good grip, because all the PSU banks were seen quite short. Maybe SBI was also seen, hugely short, so short covering, and the renewed buying, which we have been seeing post its Q4 number, is seen continuing, and that's the reason the stock is seen quite positive even going ahead.
Okay. Let's also bring in Abhimanyu Sofat into the conversation. Abhimanyu, what have you made of this big pharma rally that we have seen? And is there any point chasing stocks now in something like Reddy's, which is up whopping 16-17% just this month? If you're not in yet, is this still a good time to get in and buy?
Yeah, so I think so. Part of the rally has clearly been that the stocks were quite low relative to where they were 6-7 months back, and from those levels, since there's been a sentiment change because of Halol approval for Sun Pharma, we've seen this particular rally over last couple of days. I think so the concerns on the generic pricing still continue to remain going forward as well. So we would like to look at stock specific, something like a Torrent Pharma, where we are seeing that the integration is going pretty well going forward and earnings growth is going to be pretty good. So there we see could have a 20% kind of an upside. So something like a Torrent looks quite attractive to us. Even Biocon also looks quite good to us in terms of the new approval that are happening. With regard to Sun, I think so large part of the upside from Halol was anyway part of the estimate, because most of the people were expecting that to happen in second half of the year, and though this has happened a bit early, I think so it does bring a sentimental booster. But I think so going forward, the key matrix is going to be how the pricing is going to be in the US market, as well as the new launches of the complex molecules which are expected to happen going forward. How does the company perform on those? So that is the key going forward for Sun.
Okay, Mr. Dilshan, thoughts on Britannia? 6,000 on the stock now.
You know, all these consumption stocks are seen moving up, whether you take Britannia, Hindustan Unilever, or maybe Nestle, you know, everything is hitting. And in fact, maybe if you broaden we have discussed in the morning also about the Page Industries, or maybe 3M, or maybe Gillette. In fact, they are all seen to be, this all FMCG or consumer stocks, you know, are seen all quite richly valued. But yes, the things are seen continuing, because actually if you really see, the retail investors are not too much invested in these stocks, while all the funds have, you know, the holding in these, and that's a very positive and defensive move on part of the funds also, because you don't get to see the sellings coming in, and if you have the paucity or the low float, naturally the prices keeps moving up because of the no selling scene coming in, and the positive outlook remains continued on the consumption theme.
Okay. Mr. Dilshan, one stock I have for you is Kaveri Seed, which is quite active in trade today. And I don't know if, if this is a real breakout on technicals or something else, because after a long time, I think the stock is now trading above the levels of November, December last year. What would your view be? I don't know if there's some excitement, because Monsanto is a totally different story and there's a delisting underway over there. But thoughts on Kaveri Seeds?
See, Surbhi, I agree that, you know, because this is you know, comparable peers with the Monsanto, but I won't be taking a positive call till we really see the good working scene coming in, because the things have not been very comforting there on the results front. And in spite of the good monsoon forecast and, you know, the kind of positive outlook seen continuing on the agri-related stocks, you know, the things are not advisable to take a call on Kaveri Seeds now at this level. Instead, look for the other agri-related stocks where the things are seen more comforting.
Okay, fair point. Just take a look at some of the stocks on the downside as well. We've been talking about stocks making highs of the day. Lows of the day right now, Federal Bank. Just see the intraday chart of that. Had a bit of a rally of late, but cooling off now. Ashok Leyland is really interesting, because there's again lows of the day on Ashok Leyland, and obviously there's the texture of the stock has changed quite a bit. After a long time, Hindustan Unilever is making lows of the day. That normally doesn't happen, but that's happening right now. And of course, the pressure point for the market is on account of HDFC Bank. By the way, as we speak, the midcap index is now in the red, and advance decline still in favor of advances, but not by much. So there is a bit of an issue here in terms of some of the quality of the stocks which have rallied. Abhimanyu, I wanted your thoughts on the metal names. Today has been quite volatile. Tata Steel in particular has been quite weak. I don't know if there's any news on this, but 2.5% lower on the stock.
Yeah, so I believe there is some news where their German partners is looking at negotiating the deal. At least that is what I read somewhere. So let's see what happens on that particular front. I think so, overall, as the global economy is improving and we are not seeing any signs of weakness, metal looks a decent opportunity to grab at lower valuations. Most of these companies are going to get deleveraged if the current prices of commodities sustain for next couple of quarters. So I think so these stocks, whether you look at Tata Steel or even Hindalco, could be interesting to look at. If you look slightly lower in the market cap, I think so something like a JSPL, where the expectation of a significant improvement in EBITDA could also be quite interesting to look at from next 6 to 7 months perspective.
All right, gentlemen, stay on with us. We will take a very quick break. When we come back, we also get chatting with Jonathan Schriesel of Ashburton. We'll find out what they like in the Indian market at the moment. Although the mid-cap index is negative, as Anuj pointed out, there is some buying on Parag Milk that we have seen. And by the way, all the Page Industries peers, they are still retaining a lot of the morning gains and momentum. So Page itself is still up 4.5%. VIP, Rupa, Lovable, the entire universe has been up and about. Okay, let's get more trading ideas in. Then we have Sandeep Pagle joining in. Sandeep, your thoughts on the day and, of course, the stocks that you're working with now.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, Sandeep, your stocks for the day, your trades.
Can be expected at this level. I don't see the Nifty holding on, though I don't expect a one-way sell-off either. Stock specific, I would go with a sell in a Tata Steel, stop loss of 575, target 558, and a buy in a Kaveri Seeds, stop loss 5.
Okay, so Sandeep, there's quite a bit of delay here. So we got the trades that Sandeep was mentioning. There's a sell on Tata Steel and a buy on Kaveri Seeds. Thanks, Sandeep, for those trading ideas. Just looking at a couple of other names where we have seen declines continuing. Idea Cellular is now down about 5.5%. Mr. Chen, is this sort of fresh decline, you reckon, for Idea? I mean, the news from Jio, we had Idea bottom out at 51 and then there was a rally, but now down 5% on the stock.
See, Anuj, I don't think that you can really have the comfort on both Idea and Bharti Airtel because this Jio will be seen aggressive with their plans, whether you talk of the on the data front or maybe on the revenue front or maybe on the package plan. So I think that they are all seen to be gradually sinking, both Bharti Airtel and Idea. And I don't know, even a post merger of Idea with Vodafone, or even once they become the combined entity, what will really be the synergy? No doubt that the synergy will be seen, but whether that will really be we will be able to withstand the competition of the Reliance Jio, who will be seen quite aggressive. So we have been keeping, in fact, negative view on both the existing telecom players and continue to have that same.
Okay, there's a fire in Mumbai's Worli's high-rise building, Beaumont, and well, of course, we all live in Mumbai, and this is very close to the area. If I'm not wrong, this is also the building where I guess Deepika Padukone also has an apartment. So
there's some pictures that are floating around.
Yeah, I mean, posh building, of course. So let's see. Let's hope everything is all right in that building. But that's the update that we have for you at this point in time. Okay, the market's cooling off a bit. The Nifty is now up only 20 points. And the Bank Nifty is also cooled off a bit, up only 48 points. The bigger problem really is in mid-caps now because advanced decline. Let's just bring out that line, which is quite interesting. The advances to decline ratio, you will see that line almost about to crisscross now on advances to declines. There you can see the lines meeting. Mr. Chen, interesting move in Indiabulls housing today. Straight away there was a gap down and that sustained today. We spoke to, of course, Gagan Banga as well. There's been no move in that stock, no recovery. Your thoughts on what could be leading to this 2.5% downtick and big volumes in Indiabulls housing?
See, Anuj, in fact, it is strange. I agree that, because when you have the positive news on the housing finance company in terms of the carpet area having increased by about 33%, and you see this kind of behavior. But one thing I have noticed in Indiabulls housing finance that, which I in fact earlier also said on the channel, that whenever you see the stock correcting, it corrects by about 10, 12, 15% in one go, which has in fact started happening with this stock post its Q4 numbers, which were seen excellent, because if you take on FY18, the bottom line grew by about 30 to 33%. And in fact, whenever it starts recovering, it again goes up by about 10 to 12, 15% in one go. So it is just a matter of the bottom formation where we may see happening in the stock. In my opinion, it is now seeing in the process of bottom formation, and once that happens, one can expect, maybe 10% upside also in maybe a month or so. So this is a typical behavior. But otherwise, in fact, I've heard the management commentary also, which has been seen quite positive. And the kind of growth which they have been showing, I think that at least for next couple of years, one can expect 24-25% growth in the bottom line without any issues seen for the company's performance. So taking that into account, this all weakness which we have been seeing, in fact, post Q4 numbers is seen surprising.
Okay, Mr. Dulcian, thanks a lot for your time today. Of course, we'll talk to you tomorrow now. Before we invite Jonathan Schiesel, let me just get back to Ashwini on this mid-cap market. Ashwini, is this just a case of profit taking or anything more? I mean, down only 50 points on the index, but advanced decline is now almost in favor of declines.
Well, I've been saying that this 10,850, 920 is going to create trouble. So I guess you can call it profit booking, but strong stocks like Bajaj Finance are closing at the lows of the day. Everywhere there was a breakout that's kind of failing. So at best, sideways, I don't think you want to carry positions into the Fed event, because markets are ripe to come off, and they can basically use anything as an excuse. So that way, fairly lackluster market, one day up and one day down. Basically from the high point, we have given back a lot of gains.
Oh yes, we have. Just take a look at some of the pharma names as well. Glenmark in particular is now at the low point. Let's invite our next guest. Jonathan Schiesel of Ashburton now joins us. He of course runs an India fund and also a China India equity fund as well. Jonathan, hi. Good afternoon. Thanks a lot for joining us. I was reading that in your India-China fund, you have actually reduced India's weight and increased China's weight. What has led to that change?
That's more of a tactical decision. It's mainly dictated to by the technical factors of both underlying markets, but predominantly China. In that particular product, we tend to go over or underweight depending on the underlying market technical factors. And at the moment, the Chinese stock indices, particularly MSCI China, do look fairly bullish. So that just leads to a slight overweight call of China vis-a-vis India.
That's interesting, Jonathan. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining in. So it's more of China looking better to you and not necessarily India looking bad. And what I'm trying to ask is how do you view valuations and what we've seen at the end of the fourth quarter reporting season here?
Yeah, so clearly India's struggling a bit, but there's this massive dislocation even within the India market itself, as you guys are more aware than I am. But the narrower indices are clearly outperforming the broader smaller cap indices, or multi-cap indices. So from a global perspective, at a headline level, I think if most people are looking at, say, a Nifty or a Sensex or an MSCI India index, India is actually not too far off the highs. However, I think globally people are concerned from a sentiment perspective on India vis-a-vis oil prices and obviously the fiscal constraints. And particularly when you look at some other places, in an EM context, India doesn't stack up too well at the moment. So globally, I think yes, it is a technical factor for China looking slightly more attractive to us. But I think probably globally, China does at the moment is more of a consensus overweight, shall we say, versus India.
Okay, Jonathan, we have Infosys tomorrow completing 25 years of its listing, and what a phenomenal multi-bagger, I mean, mega wealth generator it's been for everyone, you included. You have, of course, a large part of your portfolio in Infosys. Of course, it's impossible to replicate the past 25 years, but what do the next 5-10 years you think look like for Indian IT companies?
Yeah, I think there has been some skepticism that Indian IT companies were a bit behind the changes over the last couple of years. I think there has been some scrabbling to catch up. I think actually Indian IT could be in a fairly good position for the next few years, after an initial period of skepticism. We're certainly, as you rightly say, have a decent position in the fund within 2 indices and a couple of other, or one other IT name as well. And obviously, at the moment, those after a period of underperformance for IT for a number of years, the last year or 8 or 12, roughly just under 12 months, you've seen a massive outperformance of IT. And this is, yes, it's all got to do with the currency. Yes, it's got to do with an improving global economy, but also I think the underlying fundamentals have improved for these companies.
Jonathan, a large part of your portfolio, almost 26-27% of the India fund, is in consumer stocks, consumer discretionaries, and you've actually added weight on that side over the last couple of months. So what have you been liking? What are you picking up? And do valuations not bother you here?
Yeah, I guess it depends which way you want to cut valuations. We play most of our consumer plays via auto ancillary stocks. So where we've added more recently, we added a position in Sandar Technologies, which is a auto ancillary stock geared into two-wheelers and also a little bit of mining equipment. So those sort of areas still look very attractive to us. We tend not to get so focused on short-term valuations. Yes, we do a lot of work on valuations, but we try and genuinely look at much longer-term valuations. And if a company can grow significantly and actually deliver on what we think it's going to deliver, we're prepared to sort of look past short-term high valuations.
Okay, fair point. What's interesting is that, again, looking at your India portfolio, in financials, there are some interesting names. For example, the City Union Bank. There are no sort of usual suspects, the likes of, say, an RBL Bank, Yes Bank. Interesting, City Union Bank, and a couple of others like TI Financials.
Yeah, so these are long-held positions, actually. I mean, City Union Bank, it's often being compared to the sort of mini HDFC bank, obviously in southern India. It's a phenomenally well-run bank. They have an incredible focus on what they do and what they do well, and they don't tend to sort of go into other areas which they don't know. So they're very, very focused on their core strengths, and so that's been within our portfolio for a long time, and we're very, very happy with that one. And then TI Financial, obviously, there was a demerger of Tube Investments into the financial business and the manufacturing business. And TI Financial still looks attractive to us. It's obviously focused on mainly on the insurance side, plus also non-bank financial side. And many of the businesses in there, we still do see quite a lot of value potential in that name as well.
While you have Infosys and HCL Tech in your China-India fund, are you looking at adding any other companies as well? For instance, TCS has been doing phenomenally well. Now they're coming out with a buyback. Do you plan to increase exposure on technology at all?
We've been actually adding a little bit to our existing names, but we have been doing over the last few months quite a bit of work on the mid-cap space. I think what's worked against us is unfortunately the stocks have screamed up incredibly quickly in that mid-cap area. So it's an area we're interested in, but at the moment we haven't actually allocated capital to any new name.
Actually, this was a question that I wanted to ask you on the overall texture of the mid caps in India, Jonathan, because we had a big rally in 2017. Over the last 3 months, we've gone through a brutal correction. It may not reflect in the index, but a lot of stocks and quality stocks, some of them are down 30 to 40% from their peak. Your thoughts on what could have led to this kind of pain?
Well, I think it's multiple reasons, isn't it? I guess there's been obviously the regulatory changes, particularly for the Indian mutual fund industry and what is classified large, mid or small cap. That has led to some reweighting in various portfolios. And I think, obviously, the mid-cap space, because of the liquidity side, it is mainly domestic as well. So there's liquidity issues. It doesn't take much of a selling to hit stock prices. And in addition, I guess mid-caps are predominantly domestically focused. And at the moment, investors, I think, from a sentiment perspective, are fairly bearish actually in the short term on India, and I think people are more wanting to hide in large cap liquid names that do have external exposure. Hence the outperformance of large cap IT, and obviously more recently we've seen healthcare beginning to have a pop as well. I think it's probably a trend which will last a little bit longer. We have been reducing incrementally our mid and small cap exposure. Less in number of stocks we're selling, but actually just reducing position sizes as we're conscious of that. But yeah, it's probably going to last a little bit longer, unfortunately.
Okay. What about Indian banks, Jonathan? There's a lot going on, and you hold both ends of the spectrum, the likes of an ICICI Bank on the private sector corporate lending side and the State Bank of India. Are you expecting a meaningful turnaround in PSU banks? Do you think this is the worst and it's pretty much in the price?
Well, obviously, I think with all the talk about potential mergers and stuff, that's something that we need to get some more clarity in the next, hopefully, couple of weeks. But it's interesting to see the price action of State Bank looks quite positive here. I think certainly the corporate banks, there is a feel in the market that we're probably past the worst from an NPL perspective. However, are they going to, growth is going to probably be a bit slow going forward. But certainly from a valuation perspective, they do look attractive. We have been doing quite a lot of work on other banks in different segments, but we haven't quite yet pulled the trigger as such.
Okay, Jonathan, what about risk for Indian market this year? We are the worst performing market among the big emerging markets, and 41 or 42 among the top 50 emerging markets. And this year we have some big elections as well. You reckon India's underperformance could continue this year?
I think certainly it's probably in at least another quarter. Yes, the election provides that uncertainty. I think the key, though, obviously, is the oil price, and that is obviously something which it's very difficult to predict in the world at the moment. With what's going on geopolitically. If the oil price stabilizes, then yes, I think potentially, and potentially with this earnings recovery that we are seeing, or earnings growth that we're seeing, then I think actually India could start performing again. The good news, I guess, is when you look at foreign investor positioning, we're at multi-year low levels. I think India's gone from being a consensus overweight to being maybe a neutral to very slightly overweight. So a lot of money has come out of India, and I don't think it would take too much for that money to start thinking, having another look. Clearly, though, the election calendar will probably hold some of that money off coming back for the time being.
Good talking to you, Jonathan. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for joining us on the show today. Well, that's the call from Ashburton, keeping it more to large caps than mid caps, and still like Indian IT, still like the consumer discretionary space. Those are some thoughts coming in. By the way, the mid-cap market is now actually down. It's clearly down 60-odd points on the index. There's no taking away. Pull up a Glenmark Pharma, hurtling down to the lows of the day. This is one pharma stock that's kind of seen the tide reverse, intraday at least, today. Anuj, what's the sense on mid-caps? Would this just be some profit booking after 3-4 good days?
Could be, but the way today, in particular intraday, the way stocks like Kaveri Seeds, PC Jeweler rallied, quality has been on upper circuit through the day today. It just doesn't give you, good comforting sign. Perhaps, could be the sort of last leg of this move at least on the mid-caps should be. Not to say that, the mid-caps have to necessarily go back and revisit the previous lows, but just that today the way some of the stocks have moved and the way advanced decline has come up, the signs of distribution clearly, and good quality names are down, which is quite an indicator of where the mid-cap side is positioned right now. Anyway, let's do one thing. We'll take a break. Up next, we'll get you the BTST calls. Buy today, sell tomorrow from our tech.